YouTube, Sarah here, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming to you with my September 2018 month-end wrap-up. For those of you who might be following or have been following my channel for the last little while, you know that I've kind of changed things up a bit, and I'm now doing weekly reading vlogs, which is super duper fun. Because of that, instead of doing one big wrap-up at the end of the month, I've decided to move my wrap-ups into two separate videos, one for mid-month and one for the end of the month, because I do read a lot of books every month, and it just kind of makes it a little easier, if you will, to kind of go through all the books that I read every month. So I'm going to start off with my reading stats, because I do like doing my reading stats. They're one of my favorite things. And this is for the entire month of September, not just the end of the month. So in September, I read a total of 23 books. According to my Goodreads goal, I am 32 books ahead of schedule. I'm at 88% complete. That is as of September the 30th. So when I finished my last book in September, I grabbed that information. I read 3 3-star books, 7 3.5-star books, 8 4-star books, 1 4.5-star book, and 2 5-star books. And both those 5-star books came in this end of the month part. So that was kind of fun. I read 11 contemporary romance novels, 3 historical romance Regency novels, 2 chick lits, 1 historical romance / time travel. This one was kind of a hard one to categorize, but yeah. Cozy mystery, 2 romantic suspense novels, 1 just a general mystery, 1 general fiction novel, and 1 historical romance from the 1920s. I do like breaking the historical romance novels into time period because I think it's fun just to see. I read, this is a new one. I decided now to talk about the imprints, the Harlequin imprints that I read and how many I read of each one. This one will be a really fun one because I do plan on doing a video at the end of the year. Or probably early in January, of all of my stats for the entire year. So essentially doing this list, but for the entire year. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So I read 1 Blaze novel, 1 super romance, 1 love-inspired suspense, and 1 intrigue novel. I read 21 books geared towards adults, 1 YA and 1 middle grade, 2 books published in the 1980s, 2 published in the 2000s, 14 books published between 2010 and 2017, and 5 books published this year in 2018. As I go through, and especially because I'm reading the NetGalley review books, I'm noticing a lot more books that I'm actually reading that are new, which is fantastic. I read 13 audiobooks and 10 ebooks this month. All 23 books that I read were all novels. None of them were novellas or anything like that. 18 books were part of a series, and 5 of the books that I read were standalone. Of those 18 that were part of a series, 6 were brand new series that I started, and 12 were part of an ongoing series, so that's not too bad. I read a grand total of 7,432 pages this month, or in September. That works out to a grand total of 247 pages a day. It's not too shabby. So now I'm going to get into the books that I read. There are, I think, 12 of them that I finished at the end of the month, from the 16th to the 30th. I'm not going to get a lot into what all of these books are about. I will leave links, of course, in the description box below to all of them, to their Goodreads page if you're interested in going to check them out, and seeing if there's something that might interest you. But I did talk about all of these during my weekly vlogs, so if you've been watching those, I just don't want to keep rehashing the same thing over and over again. So the first book, and this is in order that I finished them, was Rocky Mountain Cowboy Christmas by Ruggle. This was my first book by this author, and I really enjoyed it. It is a contemporary romance novel, book number 1 in the Rocky Mountain Cowboy series. It was published in 2018 by Sourcebooks Casablanca. Average rating on Goodreads of 4.03 stars. I gave it 4.5 stars. This was a NetGalley review book, and I really, really enjoyed it. It's about a woman who is a little awkward in social situations. She prefers to kind of be by herself, and she works with metal, and she builds like these neat sculptures, and her romance with a local firefighter. It was really, really cute and adorable. A great little Christmas story. The next one was The Night Mark by Tiffany Reisz. This is the historical fiction time travel novel that I mentioned. This was narrated on audio by Terry Schosnenbelt, I believe is how you say her name. Published in 2017 by Mira. This has an average rating of 4.01 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 5 stars. This one was really good, about a woman who ends up traveling back in time via this lighthouse, and you know, it deals with stuff that is happening to her in the past, to stuff that is happening now. Really great novel. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I gave it 5 stars. The next one is What the Librarian Did by Karina Bliss, another contemporary romance. This is a Harlequin super romance number 1622. It was published in 2010, of course, by Harlequin. Average rating on Goodreads of 4.43 stars, and I gave it 3.5 stars. This one was really cute. It was about the romance between a former rock star and a librarian, and it takes place in Auckland, New Zealand. So it's kind of nice to have a different setting other than the US, which is where most of the books that I read do take place. The next one was my other 5-star read of the month, and still probably if I had to rate them, this is still my favorite book of the month. And it was Just One of the Guys by Kristan Higgins. Contemporary romance novel, of course. Narrated on audio by Exie Sands. Excuse me. This was published in 2008 by HQN. Average rating of 3.91 stars on Goodreads, and of course, as I said, I gave this one 5 stars. This is one of potentially my favorite Kristan Higgins novel. I encourage everyone to read it. It's one of her lesser known works. It's an older book, obviously it's 10 years old, but it is so good. It's about a woman named Chastity who is the youngest of 4, the youngest child, and she has 4 older brothers. And all 4 of her brothers are like, one's a firefighter, you know, one's an EMT, one served in Afghanistan, that kind of thing. And she's afraid of the sight of blood. But she's always been in love with one of her brother's best friends, Trevor. And it's their relationship. And this book had me laughing and crying. It is fantastic. The next book that I finished was The Danger of Desire by Sabrina Jeffries. This is a historical romance Regency novel. Book number 3 in the Sinful Suitors series. It was narrated on audio by Beverly A. Crick, published in 2016 by Pocket Books. An average rating on Goodreads of 3.84 stars, and I gave it 4 stars. This is the story about a woman whose brother was killed by a card shark, and she is essentially going undercover, like disguised as a man, to these gaming hells to try and find who it is who killed her brother. And of course there's a romance with a gentleman who's trying to help her, and yeah, it's a really, really fun story. I thoroughly enjoyed it. This is a great series. Absolutely recommend it if you have not checked it out yet. The next one is The Christmas Wishing Tree by Emily March. This is another contemporary romance novel. Book number 15 in the Eternity Spring series. This is the only book of this series I have read, but it was absolutely fine to be able to read it out of series. Published in 2018 by St. Martin's Paperbacks. Average rating of 4.45 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 4 stars. This was another NetGalley review for me. This is a great Christmas story. It follows several different Christmases, and it's about a little boy who ends up somehow getting the number for Santa Claus. Turns out it's obviously not to Santa Claus, it's to this gentleman who just happened to get this new phone. And over the course of the first little bit of the book, it takes place over a couple of years, a couple of different Christmases. He's conversing with this boy, and the boy and his mother are having some horrible things happen to them. There's a stalker that's stalking her and causing some very horrible things to happen to her. And she hears a lot about this town called Eternity Springs that Santa talks about to the little boy, and they end up coming there. And then of course there's a romance between her and Santa Claus. Absolutely great Christmas story. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm very excited to go back and read the rest, or read more in this series, because it looks really adorable. The next one is 3 Wishes by Stephanie Bond. This is another contemporary romance, narrated on audio by Anne Richardson. This is a shorter book. I classified it as a novel, but it probably could have fit in the novella category. It's under 150 pages long. It was published in 2011. It did not give a publisher, so I'm wondering if it was self-published by the author. Average rating of 3.42 stars on Goodreads, and I gave it 3 stars. This was not my favorite Stephanie Bond. Stephanie Bond is a favorite author of mine. I absolutely love her Body Mover series. This one was cute. It was really enjoyable. It was highly entertaining, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, you've got to run out and read this book. It's essentially a retelling of Aladdin, if you couldn't tell that from the cover. Really cute story. Like I said, it's really short, really fun. If you have the Audible romance package, you can listen to it. It's included, so maybe give it a check out, like a try. Again, not one of her most amazing books, but still a highly entertaining read. Next up is Security Breach by Margaret Daley. This is a romantic suspense novel. It is book number 4 in the Capital K9 Unit series. Love-inspired suspense novel 465. It was published in 2015 by Love Inspired, which is of course a subsidiary of Harlequin. Average rating on Goodreads of 4.21 stars, and I gave this one at 3.5 stars. This one was good. It takes place in the White House. Our female lead is being stalked. She is, I believe, a press secretary or the assistant to the press secretary in the White House, And of course, our male lead is one of the guys from the Capital Canine Unit. This mini-series has an overarching storyline that weaves its way through all of the books, but if you really wanted to, you could read these as standalones, but I absolutely recommend that you do read the series in order to get the full enjoyment out of them. Next up, the Cafe by the Sea by Jenny Colgan. This was also my first Jenny Colgan, and I really, really liked it. It is a contemporary romance novel. It is book number 1 in the Summer Seaside Kitchen series, narrated on audio by Sarah Barron, published in 2017 by William Morrow Paperbacks. Average rating on Goodreads of 3.93 stars, and I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one, and I absolutely recommend, if you can, to listen to it on audio. I got my audio copy from my library. The narrator does an absolutely bang-up job. This does take place in northern Scotland, and the Scottish accents are just magical. I love them. So this is the story about a woman named Fiona who works for she's a paralegal for a very large law firm in London, and one of their new clients is actually building a resort on this little island that she grew up on, like I said, on the very, very northern, like the northern islands of Scotland. And they kind of hire her to come up and make good with the locals so that he can kind of build this thing and do a few things that he's looking to do, some changes that he's looking to make. And it's a really, really cute story. I did label it as a contemporary romance, although the romance aspect of it isn't really a major part of the story. It's more about her coming back and interacting with her family that she hasn't seen in years since her mother's death and things like that. Really, really good. Highly recommend it. The next one is Say Yes to the Marquess by Tessa. This is a historical romance, another Regency. Book number 2 in the Castles Ever After series. It was narrated on audio by Carmen Rose. I really do enjoy her narration. Published in 2014 by Avon, and has an average rating of 3.83 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 4 stars. This is another one, like I said, this is the Castles Ever After series, and I am thoroughly enjoying this series. It's so whimsical and so much fun. The entire basis of the series are about these 4 girls who don't know each other. Like, none of the other characters come into play in each of the books. They're more like, what do you call it, a companion series. And so this one, it's about a woman who inherits this castle, and she is supposed to be getting married to this guy. But he has been gone. He's been off the continent for like 8 years. They've been engaged for 8 years. And she's pretty much just about had enough. She now has a castle, and she has some big plans, and so she has to go to her fiancé's brother to try and get him to sign the papers to dissolve the engagement. And then, of course, a romance blossoms between her and the brother. So, yeah, it's really, really cute, really, really fun. There's some great funny scenes in this book. Absolutely recommend it. Next up is Wild on My Mind by Kerr. This is another contemporary romance. Book number 1 in the Where the Wild Hearts Are series. This is a brand new series. Published in 2018 by Sourcebooks Casablanca. Average rating of 4.31 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 4 stars. This was another NetGalley review. I really enjoyed this one. It is about 2 people who knew each other in high school. He was the popular jock. She was kind of the geeky nerd. And, of course, she goes off to college, and her roommate gives her a makeover, and she's, like, unrecognizable. But many, many years have passed since then, like 12 years, and they're both back in the same small town again, and he runs the local zoo, and he doesn't realize that this is the same girl that he used to torment when they were in high school. And, of course, a romance goes from there. It was really, really cute. I really enjoyed it. And, yeah, I recommend it if you want to go ahead and pick it up. And the last book that I finished this month was Undeniably Yours by Shannon Stacey, a contemporary romance novel. Book number 2 in the Kowalski family series. I do so love this series, although this was not my favorite in the series. This was narrated on audio by Lauren Fontgang, published in 2010 by Karina Press. Average rating of 3.88 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 3.5 stars. This is about a couple, Kevin Kowalski, who is the younger brother of the main character in the first book. The first book was 5 stars all the way. It was absolutely fantastic. Like I said, this one was enjoyable, but not my favorite. It's about him and this woman named Bess, and the 2 of them kind of have a one-night stand. Even though they use, like, protection, all that, she still ends up pregnant. So then the whole story is her dealing with this pregnancy and him wanting to take care of her. You know, I had some issues with, you know, Beth had some trust issues or some issues letting people kind of take over, and Kevin had issues, like, wanting to do all the things. Like, he didn't kind of want to leave her alone in a way. Not in a bad way. He was doing everything out of, like, you know, because he did care about her and the baby and stuff like that. but it was still a little overwhelming for Beth. So yeah, but it was still a really fun story. It is part of the Audible romance package, I believe, so if you're interested, go ahead and check it out. So anyway, guys, that is all the books that I read this month, or, well, for the second half of the month. Please let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these and what you thought about them, or what was your favorite book that you read in September. I'd love to know. And until my next video, guys, take care and happy reading. Bye.